Terry. This has been a long day for most of you all, and I appreciate your lingering around so that we can have a chance to talk a little bit more about what's been going on in these last 40 days. Sacrificing this beautiful weather. All right. Somewhere the blackboard is coming. We'll wait on that. While we're waiting, let's go around the room and let's take an assessment of these last 40 days. And what I'd like you to do is to respond as I point you out and tell me on a scale of 1 to 3 how your practice of the Touchstone sadhana has done these past 40 days or so. And we'll do it on a simple scale of 1, 2, 3, where 1 means that you hardly practice at all using the Touchstone. And number 2 would be you practice some of the time. When you could remember. And number 3, that you practice as frequently as possible, that your effort was very conscientious, planned, so forth and so on. So, do everybody understand the rating scale? We shall see. And remember, I hear your cooler reports, so be careful as you respond, because how you use your Touchstone shows up. So there should be no contradiction there. You're missing half of the month without doing any post-formal, and then you tell me that you practice at level 3, we have a problem. So keep your own cooler reporting profession in mind as we go around. Did you all hear the scale we're using, combining? For the sake of those who are hunting down this thing. We're going to use a scale to rate yourself with respect to how you have fared these past 40 days in the practice of the Touchstone sadhana, where 1 is hardly any practice at all. 2 is some practice when you could remember it. And 3, a very deliberate, a very planned effort at practicing the Touchstone sadhana. And I caution those who have already been instructed to answer it as accurately as possible, taking into consideration your own confessions as reflected on your cooler reports. If you have had a half a month of reporting that you have not been involved in any post-formal meditation, then I'm going to have a hard time accepting your self-assessment as a 3. All right, we'll begin from my right, large. 3 minus. 2 plus. Did you listen to your last cooler report, beloved?
Partly.
You gave it. What was your last cooler report? Okay, you think about that. 2. 2. 1. 3. Yes, sir. 2. 2. Sakurani?
3.
Did you listen to your last cooler report that you just gave? Think about it. Seth Rock?
3.
I'll be hearing your cooler report shortly.
2.
2.
2.
Practicing. Okay, you didn't hear any instructions. We'll come back to you there. Rambani?
2.
Acha. Daman?
3.
Acha.
2.
Divya?
2.
Saranjan?
2.
Rani?
2.
Mahadashi?
2.
Nasai?
2. 2. Can I break it in half?
Any way you like. No. Just give me just give me a
Okay.
40 days.
All right. 2.
We're looking at the whole 40 days.
Yeah, because for the first 2 weeks.
Just add them an average.
All right. 2.
Acha.
2.
Acha.
Yeah.
3. And so Dodgy, the scale was one where you hardly did any kind of practice at all. Okay. 2, you did some practice when you could remember. In and out. And 3, your practice of the Touchstone Sadhana was very deliberate, very planned, very conscientious. It was very intended. Acha.
Now, when I practiced, it was deliberate, and I did design the times that I knew I could practice, but I didn't engage it all the time.
Well, those are the 3 things. However
Okay.
whatever you feel.
When I
Honestly,
did it, it was
reflect.
deliberate and full attention.
Did that like when you could remember it, you cooperated with
So
your memory?
I had planned times to do it, and then let it come in on its own.
Arjuna that doesn't process with Arjuna. What's
That
wrong
doesn't
with that picture,
process?
Arjuna?
That sound like two to me. That sound like when you remembered you. It sound like when you remembered you did it, and then when you did it, you didn't do it. I mean, when you remembered, yeah, you did it deliberately, but there was times when you didn't remember to do it.
Yeah, I had planned times.
All the time should have been planned.
Right. Well, when I'm working, I'm gonna forget.
Yeah, but when you work is when you must learn how to do this.
Right, I'm not strong.
Acha, so that's not a 3-day. Acha. Well, I think that one of the things that you will begin to see as we continue the unpacking of the Drishti, you're going to begin to see the significance of practicing with as much frequency as possible this, what we have called Touchstone Sadhana. And remember, the touchstone, the device itself is just that. It's just a device. It's just a way of trying to keep your Simran Bhajanindriya, to keep your practices going. As you begin to unpack these drishtis more and more and more and begin to understand more about the nature of your own suffering, you will eventually begin to see the connection between the 2 things. That is the hope. Because if your insight and investigation into the nature of your own suffering is still not yet profound, then that will not show up at all in your practice of any kind of touchstone sadhana, for that matter, or even your regular meditation, for that matter, as well. Because you don't see how the 2 are related. You don't see how your lack of practice is related to your episodes of suffering. Now we're going to unpack that down the road as you all's powers of self-observation becomes more skilled. As a whole, you're doing fairly well. I mean, some are further along than others, but as a group, you're moving along fairly well. Still a lot more work to be done. And the problem is, of course, you are fully comprehending the Drishti, Dharma, its arguments, and so forth and so on. But as that understanding of the Drishti Dharma becomes more and more profound, you automatically will find yourself becoming much more serious, much more intentional, much more involved in the practice of what we have been calling the Touchstone Sadhana, to the point that the touchstone itself is no longer required. This touchstone as a device device is temporary. It is just something to aid you, to serve as a reminder and so forth and so on. But surely it is not a kind of practice that will characterize your sadhana for the rest of your life. It is a aid. The hope is that you will mature to that point where you see with your own eyes, based on a thorough self-observation of the phenomena of dukkha, the necessity for meditation. So today, I think what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about the suffering, a little bit about meditation and so forth and so on, and maybe we can all get a little more clarity about this whole process that I am trying to, for the life of me, get you to really embrace it seriously. Now, there's a lot of stuff, beloveds, and of course today there's no time to go into it all. We've been at this a long time, many, many years, and we still have not exhausted it. But hopefully we'll come away today with a little deeper insight into all of this. Can everybody see this? Is that right? You blocking anybody's view?
Am I?
Get out the way. Throw something at them.
I'm out over here. Is that okay?
Is that all right? All right. You've been looking at suffering. You've been trying to see the mechanism underlying the suffering. So sometimes it's difficult to comprehend this stuff through sheer written and verbal discourse because everybody have different learning styles. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, so forth and so on. So today I'm going to try to give you a kind of visual representation of the argument. Would that be all right? A schematic, if you will. And maybe that'll help. And feel free to ask your question because we don't get a chance to do this very often, as you rascals well know. So that's what we're here to take care of today, is to help deepen your comprehension, because until you are able to look deeply into your suffering and really get serious about bringing your suffering to an end, and that's the first thing, you must become serious about bringing your suffering to an end. Until that happens, you will not get serious about any aspect of meditation at all. It just won't happen. You still won't quite see the value of moment-to-moment practice. You could intellectually appreciate it and all of that, but you really will not see its real true value. And not seeing its real true value, you will not apply yourself. So feel free to.
It's like a pen.
It's like a pen, beloved. I do. Boy, this is high tech. So let's look at the etiology of suffering. The chain of events that leads to suffering. Can we cut it off, right? Should we cut it? Yeah. So that your sound is all right?
Yeah, please.
Because Bilal is going to, this will be the first thing
That's
he's looking
it.
for. You
Yeah.
know that, right?
Yeah.
Bilal don't very often get angry, but if this is not right, man,
Vincent.
you're going to see
Vincent.
You're going to see it.
I'm sorry. Honor Raj, can you turn off that light?
See there.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. In classical Buddhism, this has been called the Pitaka. Sambuddha. Sambupada. Pitaka Sambupada. And all that means is that there is a actual process that one undergoes prior to the experience of suffering. They're referred to as the theory of dependent origination. And we're not aiming to become scholars here, but I simply want to acknowledge the incredible and immense contribution that the Blessed One made in leaving behind a kind of teaching for us to help us really perfect our practices. So let's start at the beginning. Let's call this first point mind, consciousness. Because everything begins there. And the first thing you have to understand, beloved, is that suffering occurs in the mind. Please make a note. Your suffering is occurring within your own mind. Suffering is a feeling that you have. And feeling arises in your mind. Suffering is not something outside of you. It always occurs within your own mind. And the task for any serious person is to learn how to establish and maintain their mind in a state of no suffering. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. The whole purpose of the Dristis, achieving the Dristis, those points of views, that wisdom of the Drishti, and practice is so that we are able to establish, maintain the mind in a state of no suffering. Failing to be able to do that, you are always in a mind of suffering. And when you are operating in a mind state of suffering, you can't concentrate. Got it? Because all of your actions that is arising in your body and mind and speech due to your being in a mind state of suffering, it weighs too heavy on you. You're too racked. You're too full of turmoil at the time of meditation to have any kind of concentration and hence any kind of success. So far, so good. So it all starts with the mind. And when the mind makes contact with reality, suffering doesn't even begin to occur in anyone's case until your mind contacts reality. When your mind is in a deep state of susupti, right? Where the mind is withdrawn, is that right? Out of contact with reality. There is no suffering, is it? Is it? No. As the mind emerges from this deep state of susupti into a state of dreams, sleep with dreams, the sapna, right? Then some suffering. It becomes possible, doesn't it? Your nightmares, right, so forth and so on. So the mind has no experiences until it makes contact with objective reality. And by reality, that's what I mean, objective reality. Okay? And when the mind makes contact with objective reality, it creates, amongst many things, feeling. There's a feeling. Feelings arise upon contact with reality. Are you following me here now? Stay with me. It is simple. Now, we're not going to discuss all of the other things that arises at the point of contact with reality, because for the purposes of talking about suffering, we need to just focus in on feelings. But I'll put the other ones up there just for your information. The other one is form, what they have called perception, and conception. And again, these are Buddhist terms. I only know it in terms of Buddhism, so I'm only able to explain it to you like that. I'm sure there's Sanskrit, African equivalents to all of this. Form, it's clear, rupa, right? The eye sees a form. And each of these itself is a standalone argument. By perception, we mean memory. You have memory. perception would mean thoughts. Right? So forth and so on. But where we're going to be focusing in is on these feelings. So whenever your mind makes contact with objective reality, and your objective reality is the reality that you experience in the waking state, with me? Okay, that's the one we want to focus in on. These feelings will be either what? You all should know. Huh? Positive or negative, good, bad,
Like this.
pleasant, right?
Okay.
Unpleasant, right? Like, dislike, you got it. That kind of dualism, right?
Right.
Or neutral. Is that about right? Now, at that point, let's focus on, yes, beloved,
The neutrality comes, neutral.
neutral. You neither like nor dislike. You're indifferent. Of no interest. Indifference is also a feeling. Now, when a negative feeling, these are really sensations, aren't they? When a negative sensation is experienced upon the contact of mind with reality, a negative experience will cause you to do what? You will want to what?
Flee.
Fight or flight.
Right. So it's going to cause you to create a desire, aren't you? All right? Desire is going to be to avoid. Right? What happens when a positive one arises?
Clean, trash, too.
Attach, right? Okay? And once you create a desire, you have set yourself up for suffering. Because the desire will be for things to be other than the way they are. Meaning, you are creating yourself a desire for reality to be other than the way reality is. And the Drishti Dharma has told you the way reality is. Reality is what?
Impermanent?
And the rest follows from that. Right? Now, let this sink deep within you for a minute. Because this is what you have to understand. The mind makes contact with reality. A feeling will arise in you, either positive or negative. Some will happen. Either you will like what is happening or you will not like what is happening. You're going to have a feeling about it, right? If you don't stop the process at the level of the feeling, you will automatically, in milliseconds, generate a desire for that negative sensation to not be the case. Is that about right? Yes, beloved.
Stop it at the level of feeling. You mean stop it
Before it turns into a desire.
like what? Stop it before you put a spin of negative or positive on it, or the negative or positive spin.
It comes with it.
Comes with
Right.
It's packaged. You're going to have, when it rises, you're going to experience one way or the other.
Okay.
Now the trick is to not let that feeling escalate into a desire for that moment of reality to be other than the way it is. Because this desire for reality to be other than the way it is how we define suffering, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that what all suffering is? And see, if you don't have any drishti, right? If there's no drishti, right? To break this cycle, you're headed directly into suffering. Please make a note. If you don't have a drishti, you're going to suffer. Drishti then is wisdom. If there is no wisdom, right, you will not be able to maintain your mind in a state of no suffering. Okay? You will not be able to maintain your mind in a state of no suffering because you don't have any wisdom about the nature of reality. You really do not comprehend the ultimate nature of reality when it is impermanent. Ultimately dissatisfied, even in those moments when the sensation that arises is pleasurable. Because what happens again with the pleasurable rise of feelings? You want to hold on to them. Is that possible?
No.
No. And trying to hold on to it is going to set you up eventually for what? Suffering. Dukkha. You see? So, in a deep understanding of this, there is simply no distinction made between the negative or the positive feeling. Makes no distinction at all. Either one will end in your suffering if you don't shut it down prior to it's turning into a desire for that reality to last forever. Something pleasant has arisen, and you want it to last forever. That is a lack of nithya, Drishti. Something negative has arisen, and you want to change it. Or you presume it will last forever as well. You want it to not be the case. But it is the case. So you will have a desire for something to be different. And you will set yourself up for suffering. This is how you are suffering.
So we should be using the touchstone at another level to help let go of those feelings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now that brings us to the value of practice. Now that you have understood this very abbreviated form of the Pitika Samuppada, but enough of it to appreciate the rest of our consideration today. Hopefully now you will begin to see the role that practice plays here.
And another question too, Bhagwan, yesterday, we were talking about things to be other than the way things are, and Vika was having a problem with understanding that as being a lack of mithya. And I couldn't, where I was explaining this shit.
Well, let's see what happens at the end of this meeting. Maybe things will clear up for us. These are a bit subtle, but not impossible. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people over the course of time and history, people who in ancient times had no advantage of all this good education that we have understood this. So the material is not inaccessible. You see, it has been accessible for thousands and thousands of years. What it does require, however, is an honest look into one's own life. It always requires that. Yes, good luck.
So how does fear play into that? Because I was just recently pushed into an oncoming fire truck, and the fire truck swerved to keep from hitting me. And my instant reaction was, fear is hell. So how does...
Well, what is fear? Isn't it a feeling?
Right.
And that led to a desire,
Right.
and that led to your suffering. it'll hopefully become a little clearer. Let's say more about this feeling desire mechanism, because I think that will help you understand. Now, again, let's look at negative feelings. And again, remember, we can look at positive feelings as well. So let me move this up a little bit so that we can unpack it. All these negative feelings, remember, are arising in the mind. Keep that before you. These negative feelings are all arising in your mind. These negative feelings that arises in your mind pollutes the mind. Okay? It defiles the mind. Hence, in the literature, the masters always talk about purifying your mind. But what you're purifying your mind of is all of these negative feelings. For instance, anger, right? It's a negative feeling, isn't it? Greed, you all know it, right? And all of their subsidiary forms, depression. I mean, you can tease out about 36 negative emotions right out of here. I mean, there's a lot of negative emotions. You see. I think the Buddha classified about 84,000. I mean, when you really start peeling, right? All of these negative emotions are in your mind. That puts your mind in a state of turmoil. And you lose the ability to be at peace. Please make a note. You lose the peace of mind that you had prior to contact, if you were fortunate enough to have some. Now, again, you have to really kind of feel this one. You have to kind of get an intuition of what I'm talking about here. Now you are in a state of anger, right? And you don't throw that anger out, right? You will, in the instant now, have a desire for something to be other than the way it is. Is that about right? Let me show you the cycle how we normally go, and I think this will help you. Because I'm here today to try to really push you a little deeper into your exercises. Here's how I normally go. Here's mind consciousness. Makes contact with some aspect of reality. You get a feeling, negative feeling, let's say anger, right? You let anger turn into a desire for this person to have not done that, not said that, change, blah, 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 right? You do all of that lack of Drishti stuff, right? All desires are arising out of a lack of Drishti. Of course it fails, right? Then you have suffering, right? Now you look for a way to relieve this suffering. You read some books, you shoot some drugs, you come to satsang, you read a book, you turn the TV. You follow what I'm saying? You actually allow feeling to escalate all the way through the cycle and become suffering. And then you try to relieve your suffering. That's what you do. Aren't you? Do you see it?
Yes.
Clearly?
Yes.
But I mean, really. That's what you do. You allow yourself, you allow your mind to get into a state of suffering. You tend to operate and allow your mind to operate in a state of suffering, which means that your mind is always hurting. and thus always seeking some relief. You want to meditate, something. You follow me? Now, in ancient times, you see, they discovered that there was some ways of dealing with this suffering. We talked about the 3 forms of suffering. Surrender talked to you all about it. Well, there's also 3 forms of happiness. And when people were in their state of suffering, in order to relieve their suffering, they had to find some kind of way to make themselves happy. And the first way was sensual happiness. That is the relief you can get by indulging the senses. You follow me? Money, food, sex, bodily comfort, the stuff that you're actually doing is a for sensual happiness as an antidote to your suffering. Well, it didn't take long for people to realize that all of these forms and strategies that are related to my indulging my senses doesn't give me any kind of deep happiness, because sensual indulgence is impermanent. Right. So eventually they had a breakthrough insight. And they found out that, well, there's another way to do this. Because they realized, well, you see, this Pitaka Samuppada, this cycle of suffering was known long before the Buddha, obviously. Okay, the Buddha just put some spins on it, some beautiful ones. But he did not create it. It did not originate with it. It was already ancient by the time of the Buddha. So people already understood this mind, contact, feeling, suffering cycle of desire. To some extent, you see. And so what they decided is, well, if we can keep the mind from making contact, if we can knock out the contact, all of this collapse doesn't it? If I don't make contact, I can't have any suffering. I ain't got to worry about it. And they took that insight and developed the entire culture of yoga. You see? They fled into the forests, you understand? And they learned how to put themselves in a state of samadhi, concentration. They learned that by concentrating the mind, not allowing the mind to go out and make contact, that will generate another kind of happiness. And they call that the happiness of concentration, which is much more satisfying than the happiness you can achieve through sensual indulgence. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
So they would spend their entire life and every waking moment in samadhi. A lot of them died, killed themselves, trying to learn how to do this kind of yoga. You see? I mean, they perished. The elements got them, you know what I mean? Because they were really into mortification. You see my point? That whole thing. They were keeping their mind from going out. You see my point? Into some real profound asceticism, the kind of asceticism that the Buddha described and practiced himself for many, many years, 6 years at least. Yes?
So this is more so aimed at, rather than objective happiness, subjective happiness.
Another way, keeping the mind going out.
Right.
And it is a more intense experience of happiness, by the way. The happiness that you enjoy when you are able to withdraw the mind and keep it from making contact with conditions traditional or objective reality is much, 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 much more satisfying than any happiness that you're getting through your means of sensual indulgence. You follow me? It's a much deeper happiness. It resonates much deeper. In fact, it was called bliss to distinguish it from the ordinary happiness that is associated with mere sensual indulgence. But the problem was with this was that when you came out of samadhi, the cycle started. Because you can't sit there forever. You know, that's why I said a lot of them died sitting because, you know, they're trying to sit forever and eventually they starved to death because they wouldn't get up, their bladders burst, you know what I mean? Because they wouldn't get up and relieve themselves. They would leave themselves right on the spot, defecate, urinate right where they're sitting. That breeds disease and, you know, all of the rest of that, right? So, I mean, they died in their own shit and piss, literally, or starved to death, right? Because they knew from past experience that once they broke their samadhi, boom, right? So they tried to stay in samadhi forever. They came up with all kinds of concoctions, all kinds of medicines, all kinds of breathing techniques to immortalize the body. You know what I mean? To do something with this body in such a way that I can stay in samadhi for very, very long periods of time. And so eventually they learned how to do that. So they may be able to sit in samadhi, you know, 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean? And then come out and eat a little bit, correct? You know what I mean? Right back in. This the yogis who learned how to bury themselves on the ground. You know what I mean? I mean, they could do those kind of things, you see. They developed powers or cities that gave them control, minimizing these needs of the body and so forth and so on. But clearly many of them died for very painful, you know, deaths and trying to stay in a state of perpetual samadhi. There's a means of bringing their suffering to an end. They still did not know how to establish and maintain their minds in a state of no suffering.
Can you use the mantra to not make contact? So,
It's the whole purpose of the mantra.
right. To replace that, it can be used to replace what they was doing in the caves.
But the mantra is a outcome of what they were doing in the cave. That's part of the cave technology. Existence of mantra and this very method of meditation, listening to the Shabbat and all of this is the byproduct of these rishis. These rishis and munis who went into these caves. That's what we have. And that is their gift to us because they give us the means by which you can bring your suffering to an end by going into a state of concentration. The only problem, as we all know, you gotta come out. See, in those days, they could extend their stays because even when they break, they don't even have to go out and hunt for food. People would come. People came every day and food. So there's a whole culture that developed around these men and women of the forest and caves who appreciated and understood that. And they were taken care of, you know. Now later on they had to come down out of the monasteries into the village with their begging bowls and get fed. But the point is, people still fed them. Well, ain't nobody gonna feed you here. You gotta go get a job. That's what I mean.
Is there any that reached enlightenment by that method at all? I mean, ultimately?
Well, of course, there were some who saw the fallacy of that and moved on, like the Buddha, you see, Mahavira. You know, these are individuals who went through that and went beyond that process, right? But what I'm arguing is that the vast majority of those rishis at that time got stuck right there and never went yes, you'll get a Mahavira here, you'll get a Buddha there, you see, and so forth and so on. They go further. That goes beyond. That's why they call the Buddha the Tathagata, one who's gone beyond that. But first you got to get there. See, where you all are at, you are still operating in the realm of sensual indulgence for the sake of alleviating your suffering. You don't even understand the cycle that has led to the suffering, and you're not even trying to yourself in a mind of no suffering. You're taking the suffering as if it's inevitable, as if I must suffer. No, you don't have to suffer. You think suffering is not an option, but it is. So you accept your condition as, well, I guess I'm just going to suffer forever. Now let me come up with ways to give myself relief. You are still in search of sensual happiness, the lowest form of happiness. Yes,
Master, are you saying that the level of the feelings is when we come to that point is not to act on those feelings? And
not to generate a desire. And that's a good question, you see, Mahaseh, because see, you can still take an action. Say a person has made you angry, right? There's a situation that has to be handled, isn't it?
Right.
You don't have to be angry at the person to handle the situation.
Right.
Do you?
No.
Right? But Adaji gave an example in your cooler, right, about this character that wanders into your office last Wednesday, right? Just as you were ready to get here. Is that right, beloved? And that whole cycle occurred in your case, right? And you were angry at him, right? Right. But you could have resolved the situation without even getting angry at him. It wasn't necessary. You see, whatever you did eventually to get here, right? You could have did all of that without angry. You could have asked, okay, man, handle the business, see what he wants, and all of that, right? Without getting angry. Anger gets in the way.
Right.
You see my point? So, good question, you see. So what happens, you see, Mahaseva, we talked about these 4 things that arise upon contact. In classical Buddhism, we have called them skandhas, or aggregates, right? And actually we can do it, I'm just putting these things on here because sometimes this helps us see it. Just say this is consciousness, mind. And we got form, we got feeling, we got memory, we got thoughts. All right? We can handle any objective reality, which is form, with these 2. We don't need these to handle business out here at all. Right? You have a situation that arises, right? Okay, you got memory where you got all your information stored. You got your mind, right? The thinking, ability to think. You could just, with these 3, right, handle all that business. You don't even need to be angry to be efficient. You got it?
Yes, sir.
You can't even be efficient angry. Right? You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Do you really truly see it?
Yes. We'll see.
To get some relief. No, you do not have to cuss the nigga out to get some relief. You can get the relief without all of that.
Right.
Can't you?
Yes, absolutely.
But if you're thinking that your anger is necessary, you follow me? That's the lack of wisdom. That's the lack of drishti. That's unenlightenment. Feelings just can alert you. Problem. And that's it. They've done their job.
Right.
Boom.
It's just a messenger.
The messenger.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't need it no more.
What did you say, feelings are what?
The feelings can simply alert you.
It's a messenger.
And that's it. And then you don't need them anymore. It's done. It's performed its function. Because it has a function, otherwise it wouldn't have the capacity for it. So that's obvious. Yes, beloved?
So that's the point where you either control it by no desire,
Right.
or you get the desire.
There you
Once
go.
you get the desire,
You're
you're in
going.
control.
Once you let this feeling escalate to the point of desire,
Right.
all of these shuts down. And we all know that from experience.
When you, if you operate out of thoughts or memories, is that the same as also being the neutral form in terms of feelings?
Yeah,
That will create
yeah,
neutrality?
yeah, that's neutralizing it. That's a kind of a neutral thing, right? You're calm already. You know you're neutral.
And that is the feeling of being neutral
Yeah.
and then letting your thoughts.
That's right. That's right. That's another way of looking at it. You're going to find different ways of saying the same thing, but the most important thing is for us to get the point, right?
Right.
Now, let's return to our example. We talked about sensual happiness. We've talked about the happiness that comes from concentration. And then there's a third kind of happiness that has been called ultimate happiness. You see? This is the happiness that is arrived by learning how to establish and then maintain the mind in a state of no suffering.
So, Marvin, the question is this, right? I'm make sure I'm following you. When we shut down these feelings from turning into desires,
Right.
what we're actually doing is maintaining.
You maintain a mind of no suffering. The moment you allow your feelings to, you have crossed over into a mind of suffering. Because where there's a desire for that slice of reality to be other than the way it is, there is suffering. Do you see it?
Yes.
Let me see if I can. When one desires reality to be other than the way it is, based on the Drishti, Dharma, one then wants Tana, right? One then wants something that one cannot have. This is dukkha. You want something I have, and you are going to suffer. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, beloved.
So, Master, when the feeling arises, before it gets to desire, if I accept that this is the way it is, it won't go to desire then.
If you have established yourself and are able to maintain your mind in a state of no suffering, which is the same as saying maintaining your the wisdom mind, it can't go no further. Now, if you don't have the wisdom mind,
Right.
then you gotta throw it out of your mind, and that's where sadhana comes in. When you are doing your meditation, moment to moment, you are throwing it out of your mind
Got it.
and resorting to your mantra. Your mantra is a mechanism of throwing the stuff out of your mind. Got it?
Yep.
No, do you got it? You rascal got it? Get the frown off your face. You got it, rascal woman? Yes, Minister.
Yesterday in the Kulu, I mentioned the things between like the desire,
Mm-hmm.
and it's closely related to like wants and needs.
That-
And
yeah.
that does, you know, you got to have discrimination to
Yes.
see if it's a want or it's a need or it's
Sure.
a necessity.
Sure. You got to see that. All of that is also necessary, you see. It doesn't change the practicality of your life, because I've already said you can handle all the business that you need to handle without any anger, lust, greed, attachment, or vanity. You people seem to think that your anger, your lust, your greed, and your vanity is absolutely necessary for your survival. And you cling to it and justify it, and you rationalize that clinging and justification to your negative states of mind on the spurious claim that without them, I'm dead meat in the water. That's bullshit. Pure bullshit. You follow me? You even celebrate your defiled state of mind. You know what I mean? Well, that's just the way I am. I'm angry. I'm an angry person. That's the way I am. That's bull. This is sick. You sick. That's what you are. You're sick. You're sick. And the proof of it is you're sick. Hmm? So when one desires some aspect of reality to be other than the way it is, that is equivalent to wanting something you cannot have. And the result is suffering. And the Drishti Dharma has argued how the ultimate nature of reality is. If you possess Drishti jhana, then this wisdom shuts down that feeling arising and turn it into. You simply will never let your feeling rise to a point where it will cause you to desire reality to be other than the way it is. And in that moment, you will be maintaining your mind in a state of no suffering. And that's got to become your goal. You see, what your goals have to become here now, fellas and sisters, is to establish and maintain your mind in a state of no suffering at all costs. Yes, I do.
Okay, so that's why you keep giving us all these instances over and over again, because until we start to until we start to actually
Yeah.
these things gonna keep coming up.
That's right.
Like six more. Okay, now
Six more. That's right. And you'll have six more when we leave. It's going to be six more for a long time. Yes, beloved?
We need to have the wisdom of the Drishtis in order to be able to do the sadhana. Is that correct?
You, at some level, yes, that's true. You need a certain amount of wisdom just to be able to even engage in the practice. Well, you all hopefully are doing some practice, so it's not all lost, right? You see. But we have to be careful when we say engage in the practice versus engage in the real practice. And just sitting there with your mind caught up in turmoil is not engaging in the practice. And that is usually what is happening in most of you all cases, because you are trying to practice in a state of mind of suffering. You're trying to do your practice in a state of mind of suffering. Now, what's wrong with that picture, Smith?
It don't happen.
But do you see how it can't happen? Because your mind is full of too much turmoil. Too much turmoil. I mean, it's full of turmoil, literally. It can't come into concentration. You're full of turmoil. It is defiled. You see? It's not pure. It's agitated. Yes, beloved?
Did you say it's full of too many desires?
Yeah, it's full of desires and everything. All kinds of things. Feelings. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what you're sitting there doing. Trying to figure out ways to implement your desires to make reality be other than the way it was. I mean, that's the whole process you are engaged in. So, yes, Babikara, all of that is what's going on in your mind while you are sitting, at the time that you are sitting.
Oh, you mean sitting? I thought you meant.
Or even when you're not sitting, it's the same thing. What I'm saying is you're just in that state of mind, and while in that state of mind, you sit for a couple hours, you go to work, you go to washroom, you cook, you drive to the mall. But all of those activities that you are engaged in are occurring out of a state of mind, out of the suffering state of mind. And so you see, Mukherjee, when you take that kind of state of mind and sit down and close your eyes,
Forget it. Forget it.
well, I don't even know if we can legitimately call that practice.
Nope.
You see? But at least you're making the effort. So that's good. Effort leads to success sooner or later. Right? But you won't congratulate yourself. Yes, beloved.
So actually, when the mind meets the objective, that's causing, and the desires what causing suffering. It's not what's going on outside. It's not the other person. It's not any of those things. It's simply what the mind itself has created.
Yes.
Meeting the
And contacting the objective reality.
So getting mad at somebody is ridiculous, at something, because it's never outside of the person.
Right. That's the insight. And you begin to get that insight. If you're unpacking your drishti, you're seeing how you're simply projecting stuff on the people and then reacting to that.
And that goes back to the lack of those.
Yeah, that's the lack of those, that's a classical lack of those drishti. Those drishti is to realize precisely what you just said is all that you're doing. Right? No. You project your values. I was talking with Sadaji. He had the revelation. He said it stunned him. He was drunk. He could hardly drive. It was such a stunning breakthrough, right? But he had the recognition in that moment that what he was doing is projecting his values on the people, presuming other people have the same set of values that you do. Yeah. Right? And then reacting to it when their behavior doesn't line up. And he owed all of that to his cooler mates who served him well. The cooler mates are out there. Everybody just stand, take a bow, stand out, how they served that brother up. They ran him up that tree, and later that night he had that revelation. But you get my point. This mind making this contact creates your own world that we call samsara. Samsara. That's the world you have created. And then that produces a sensation. Feeling will arise. And from that feeling, a desire for reality to in some way, shape, form, or fashion be other than the way it is, to operate other than the way it is. So you want reality to begin to negative feeling arise, right? Something changed. Things keep changing. People keep changing. Circumstances keep changing. My comfort zone keeps oscillating up and down, and I don't want to have to suffer from, you know what I mean, of my comfort zone, or my physical health and all of that. So I now generate a desire for reality to be other than the way it is.
That's delusion, illusion.
That's delusion. That's lack of drishti. You see, that's lack of drishti. That's ignorance. That's suffering. Because reality operates the way reality operates. Period. You follow me?
Yes, sir.
But if you can, so if you can, so the argument question was, if you can knock this out, if you can stop it before it gets here, it will be as if nothing happened. It will be as if somebody insults you, right? Calls you a horrible name or embarrasses you, right? A feeling of embarrassment arises. If you can throw it out, either by resorting to your mantra, your simmering, your bhajan, your diya, or if it comes in contact with the wisdom mind that you have become established in, it doesn't turn into a desire for them to be other than the way they are. And it is as if they did not even insult you. As if they had said nothing to you. You maintain your mind in a state of no suffering. When I say that, that means you maintain yourself in a state of peace, calm, cool, tranquil.
You don't repress the feeling.
No, it's no repression.
Because I think a lot of people think that's what happened. Well,
Right.
I'm just pushing down.
Right.
And that's repression.
Sure. And you will know it because you're suffering.
Right. It's the feeling.
See, here you don't have to do any arithmetic.
Right.
There's no calculus to get involved in. You don't need to look at a piece of paper to figure it out whether I'm suffering or whether I'm not suffering. None of that is required. You can feel it because of consciousness. Consciousness knows what you're feeling. Each and every one of us, by virtue of having consciousness, have knowledge. And we know when we are disturbed. Nobody has to tell you that. You know it. You can feel disturbance in your mind. You can feel it. What you have to do now is change your whole concept, your whole thought, the whole way that you've been thinking about it. Because when you start feeling some disturbance arising within you, immediately you go to your toolkit. You follow what I'm saying? You pull your anger out, right? And attack what you perceive as being the outside source of your disturbance, rather than attack the anger itself and throw it out. And then handle the situation. It's a very different thing. But this establishing and maintaining your mind in a state of no suffering has to become your goal. It has to become what you're all about. Whether you all really are able to feel what I'm saying here to you. Yeah. Are you? Are you able to feel what I'm saying? Amen. Your goal is not to be right. You can be right, or you can enjoy maintaining a mind of no suffering. You choose. Roger, what are you laughing at? You're not like that, are you? You haven't been making those kind of choices, have you? Huh? But that's what you all do. When you enter into a dispute, because I hear it all the time, you know I do. Right? You enter into a dispute, And in that moment of disputation, all of your energy is focused on your being right. You become obsessed with being right at the cost of your own peace of mind. Right, Brother G? Because your goal is to be right. And I'm saying to you, from henceforth, your goal must be to move throughout your day and move throughout your duties and responsibilities in life, maintaining your mind in a state of no suffering. That's what it's about. You see, your goal is not even feelings. You see them, because you have to notice them.
They're gonna come up.
They're going to come up anyway because you are in contact. See, you're out here. You woke up already, right? You've entered into the waking day. It's on.
You woke up. That's it.
That's the
You don't
contact.
have to woke up.
That's right. You entered into the waking state. You're in contact now. And in that contact with everything that is arising in the waking condition, feelings will arise in you. Cool. Know this. This is what you must really comprehend about the nature of feelings. You have to get this. You have to get this. The nature of all feelings are that, one, they are impermanent. Right?
Right.
What the Buddha called anicca. They are impermanent. They're just feelings. Because they arise does not mean you have to do anything with them. They're just feelings that are arising automatically upon contact. It's a nervous system phenomena. Do you understand? This is nervous system stuff that is going on in you. It is neurological. It's a neurological phenomena. It is the body itself responding to vibration. It's neurology, folks. And it is impermanent. You follow me? And if you don't become identified with it, we become identified with it. And we say, I'm angry. I am angry. It's a feeling arising within the context of your own mind and awareness. That's not who you are. Feelings are not equal to identity. Please make a note. The Buddha called it anatta. Not self. You got to see it. When these feelings arise, you got to be clear. That's not myself. It's a feeling. And don't become as being self. You feel the weather, right? Yeah. Do you go around saying, I'm the weather? Wait a minute. Do you folks understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Who doing that in here? We're kicking you out now. Are you doing this? No,
I got a question. Okay, so I feel the weather. I am cold. The proper response is to adjust the temperature and go on about your business.
You don't have to become identified with the weather.
Right.
Do you?
No.
Your feelings are just your inner weather. Got it? Got it? Got it? Got it? All right. Next thing to realize about feelings is that when you don't have this understanding and you become attached to them, identified with them, the result is dukkha. Because those feelings now will lead you to generate a desire for the weather to be
Other than what it is.
and you will be wanting something that you care not.
Right.
Whoa!
Wasting your energy.
That resonates, Buddha. Oh, rascals are having a good time. You have a good time. You're pulling your hair out your head. But I'm happy to see that the material is not depressing. So this is what it is to be understood about the nature of feeling. And this must be fully comprehended. It must be fully comprehended. You must sit with it, ponder it, introspect it, until this is fully comprehended. Because unless there is a full comprehension of the nature of your feelings, unless you are able to really, truly see the impermanent nature of feelings, insanity of your feelings, as your feelings not being equal to you and who you are. And unless you can see that, then you're going to have to stop. Because those feelings will escalate and move you to format a desire for something that you cannot have, which is things be the way you want them to be. You cannot have that. So here today you must really comprehend that you cannot have things to be the way you want, based on your identifications with your emotion. Are you hearing me?
Absolutely.
Because that's all you're doing, aren't you?
Yes.
Identify with some emotion, some feeling. You have a desire for things to be the way you, that feeling makes you want them to be. That's what you're doing?
Yep.
And you're suffering, aren't you?
Big time.
Yes, sir.
You don't have Drishti. Now, so we're ready to begin to look at and appreciate our practice of moment-to-moment meditation now. Because you need that. That's the mechanism by which you throw those defilements out your mind. You let your mind get full of all this defilement, right? Your mind is full of anger. You got greed. You got attachment. You see, you got all this vanity inside of your mind. You see, you got depression. You got sadness. Yeah, you got every kind of negative emotion you can imagine going on in your head. All 84,000 of them or whatever. You got some shame going on, right? Right?
Fear.
All got fear down there. You got blaming, right? You got jealousy. You got them all. And this is the state of suffering. This is the mind in a state of suffering. And you are maintaining your in a state of suffering.
By choice.
By choice. By choice. Right. Out of ignorance, you're right. You are consciously and deliberately maintaining your mind in a state of suffering. You got a lot of self-pity inside of it. Self-pity. You see my point? All of that is going on. Full of all kinds of complaint, bitching, moaning, lying, justifying, rationalizing. Aren't you? All the time. Rationalizing, justifying, all of that is going on.
It's my biography.
To maintain your mind in a state of suffering. And this is what you have to see. The purpose of your exercises, beloved, is to help you see what you are doing. And each one of those incidents, see what you did in those incidents?
Right.
You were making yourself angry?
Right.
You got 10,000 of those incidents running back to back That's all your life is. It's just one incident after another. And each one of those incidents, you are making yourself so boom, 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 boom. And your mind is now full of this suffering, none of which you see how you're making. You don't understand the cycle. Your goal must be to clean this shit out. Right? To get a empty mind, as the Buddhists call it, empty mind. Right? Empty of all these defilements, pure mind. You follow what I'm saying? The wisdom mind, clear, luminous is the word that's most often used. This is the original state of the mind. We call it Nijman. Luminous, prior to any suffering, right? And you want to maintain your mind in the state of no suffering. You want to maintain your mind in the state of luminosity. That has to be the goal if you are sane. I hope y'all at least saying that. All right? You know what I mean? I hope it ain't gotten that bad. No?
It's questions, boy.
And so our Simran, Bhajan, and Dhyan, this moment-to-moment meditation, is about all of that. So when we found that of the mind has occurred in the form of one of these negative feelings, we throw it out. We push it out of the mind. Throw it out. Throw it out. It's like an immunity system. You see my point? And you got to keep that operating moment to moment because feelings are arising moment to moment. Right? You get up in the morning time, that's when you establish yourself in that state of mind of no suffering. And then you maintain it throughout the day. But you can't establish until you do some cleanup. Because you're trying to sit and establish a state of mind of no suffering full of this in your mind. That's why you can't concentrate. Right? Is that right? You can't. Because all those defilements, all that debris, all that stuff, all that drama and trauma and turmoil that is going on in your head prevents you from concentrating. You can't. You're too worried. You see? You worried about so much shit that you can't concentrate. You can't. Your mind is full of worries, concerns, schemes, strategies. It can't concentrate. And you will go state of contamination to the degree that you continue to operate from a lack of drishti. Every moment you are operating out of a lack of drishti, you add in some more stuff inside. Yes, sir?
In Buddhism, there's a term called the heat. Is that similar?
What is it?
The heat.
The heat, yeah. Yeah, the heat. That is what the skandhas are called, the heat. Right? I like that term. Just a heap of stuff, right?
So is that
Yes.
the same thing?
These are the skandhas, the 5 skandhas.
That's what they call resting in your rippa.
This is what they call resting in your rippa in Tibetan Buddhism. Because, you know, the terminology is different. So you have Pali Buddhism, or Theravadan Buddhism, or Mahayana Buddhism, or Vajrayana Buddhism, and so forth and so on. In the Tibetan Buddhism, you know, and they call it resting in one's rippa. Yeah, I like that. That's what you must do. You must maintain and then rest in your rippa. We talked about that years ago, didn't we? Now, to avoid having simply sit here and giving you a lot of information, let's have some dialogue about it. Because I really want you to really ponder this stuff to the point of understanding. Yes, ma'am.
Master, in this state where all this stuff is going on in your head, I might be going off a little bit here. Love really can't even,
No way.
you know.
No way. No way. No way. You see, there's in traditional religions, all of them, there's a kind of emphasis placed on sila, or moral and ethical conducts, of which the highest expression is to love others. The whole concept of the bodhisattva, being a compassionate being. But tell me, how can you be compassionate operating in a mind full of suffering? You simply will contaminate other people or exploit other people, but you certainly are in no position to be compassionate, let alone loving. Your mind is messed up. You have to really understand this thing. You see, you have a choice. Either maintain your mind in a state of no suffering, or you can allow your mind to remain in a state of suffering. That's your choice. You have it right now. That choice is right before you here as we speak. It's your choice. And you must simply choose.
It helps if you believe in it, you know. Like if you don't believe it and you practice it and you find that it works, your belief will develop anyway.
But in this case, you beloved, you of course right there about it. But here your belief is not even required. Belief is required about something you don't know anything about. Here, you just look at your life. I mean, don't you know when you are disturbed?
Yeah.
Can't you feel it? Can't you feel it? You can feel it. You know when something, you can feel disturbance arising in your mind. You can feel it. Somebody say something to you, you can feel it, right? You know, somebody, your husband or wife is snoring. When they start snoring, you can feel it. Can't you? Right? You can feel it. You can feel what disturbs you. Right? It's not about telling somebody else what disturbs them. You have no access to that.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's about you knowing what disturbs you, and you have that knowledge already. Yes, beloved?
So when that feeling actually occurs,
When you feel that feeling,
just don't say, I don't want this to be like this.
don't even
Because
go
then
there.
You've
Don't even
lost it.
Yeah.
You've gone that fast. You've
Just
gone that fast.
First, accept the feeling.
Yeah. Notice the feeling, right? And then throw it out. Either by way of Simran Bhajan or Diyan, and if you are established already in the state of the mind of wisdom, as it arises, it will just automatically be extinguished with no effort. Yes, beloved.
You said throw it out, I think somebody frowned again, that's better.
You better not be frowning.
I'm
She's having old information overload. That's that computer processing, right? She's getting it. She's getting it. She's getting it. Yes, beloved.
So we have to, right now, put the effort, put it into the level of the effort of throwing it out,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully it gets to the point where the wisdom I would take.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. Absolutely, beloved. So while you are practicing the cultivation of right view of the wisdom mind, in the meantime, you have another tool to maintain your mind in the state of no suffering. Simran Bhajan. And then once you have fully cultivated the right view, then you can set that practice down. And now, just by virtue of having established yourself in that state of mind, of wisdom, when the feelings arise, they dissipate. But the Buddha says, like when ambers meet a cool pond. Nirvana. Extinguish. Just like that.
Don't give it your attention.
Mind. You see. Protection.
So you have to give it some attention so that you don't suppress
You're
it.
aware of it.
So
you're
your
aware of it.
awareness of it.
Sure, you're aware of it.
Because what Raji said about not suppressing it, can you go into how that happens versus what you're saying?
Well, you already know how that happens. That's what y'all doing.
You still suffer.
you all are repressing.
Feel it in your body.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, you are. You're still feeling. You see, you're angry. You're not expressing it, but you're angry inside. You can feel it.
That's how you know.
That's why I said it. You see, we don't have to resort to formula or theory about it. It just you're feeling it. You know when you are disturbed. You can feel it. It's just like you know when you're about to fall. Can't you tell when you're losing your balance?
Right.
Right. Come on, you can't. You gotta be able to. But it is just like that, except just like you feel yourself about to stumble and lose your balance, you can feel yourself losing your mental and emotional balance. You can feel that. That phenomena is accessible to your awareness.
Can
your
you be
attention.
so unbalanced that you don't know that you...
Did you already lay it down there, right? Well, you should know. You should know that laid out there on the sidewalk with your head busted. Hey, something must be abnormal about that. I mean, you should be able to figure that one out. This is what our ancestors call ma'at. This ma'at dharma is so profound. The ma'at dharma says that there is this balance, a state of mind, body. This is my heart, right? And you can feel this. There's a kind of factor that enables us to feel when you're out of my heart. You can feel when you lose your balance. Nobody has to tell you. Nobody can tell you. That's the first thing. Right? And as you practice my art, your acuity to feel this loss of balance becomes more and more profound. Even at the level of your senses. Now, I don't have time to go into all of the time, but one of the key factors in this is here. It's amazing. The Kemetic saints and mystics put a lot of emphasis on becoming a man and woman of hearing. Because we even know, in terms of just ordinary physiology, that your ear is the organ in the body that helps you maintain your balance. That's why when you have an inner ear infection, you get dizzy, and so forth and so on, right? So hearing, the ability to hear well, increases your ma'at, your ability to maintain balance. And there are some tribes still today in Africa whose range of hearing is about 10 times ordinary human beings. I mean, different cultures, you know, particularly ancient cultures, they have these high lines of development, you know, these lines of development, like a cognitive line, a sensual line, and blah, 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 blah. For instance, the Aboriginals in Australia, memory, they have a high cognitive development of the faculty of memory. They can remember stuff. You know what I mean? they remember where a water hole is at that they went to, 50 years ago. Couldn't remember. But all of these are things to aid in the maintenance of my art. The point I'm making is that I'm to be in a state of my art. That's all that is my art is saying. It's the same thing we've been saying here. Maintaining a state of mental and emotional balance. Maintaining your mind in a state of no suffering. That's my art. And if you're able to maintain yourself in a state of suffering, it's only because you're able to achieve a kind of harmonia with reality. My art is then most fundamentally a state of harmonia with the ultimate nature of reality. And that, you are in my art. You see? Are you following me? Yeah. And that's what the whole ancient Kemetic cultural goal and objective was, how to create human culture that reflects the harmony with the ultimate nature of the cosmos, i.e. reality. To give cultural expression to that, to manifest that. Because it isn't to everything. You have, if you are maintaining your mind in a state of no suffering, there is a kind of physical, observable result of that, isn't it? It looks a certain way, doesn't it? Yeah. It's not all just subjective in your head, right? It's there permeating your interaction with other people, right? It's a context of your relationship with other people, right? And you will find that in that context of your relationship with other people, a lot of the defilements. See, your defilement comes right out in your relationship. It shows right up where it's full of blame. You know you're in a defiled, sick state of mind. You're not in my art. You're operating out of mind full of suffering. You follow what I'm saying? It comes out. So you won't find in the context of those relationships of individuals who have been able to establish and maintain to some degree their mind in a state of no suffering, you won't see any of the signs of the suffering mind. You see? They're not trying to exploit nobody. You follow me? They're not manipulating. They're not always constantly blaming and complaining, bitching and moaning. They're not always in conflict with somebody or something. You see, you all know all of these things. I'm just reminding of you. Again, we can talk about the 42 negative confections coming out of the ancient Kemetic system, right? You all know those, right? I have not hurt anybody. I have not harmed, blah, 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 right? The Buddha systematically talks about it also. That's what the whole fourth knowledge is. The Four Noble Truths are just four knowledges. That's, when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, that's a kind of modernization of the language, right? And in the times of the Buddha, these were the four jhanas, you see? The four knowledge of suffering and what it is, right? That's the first noble truth, right? And then there was the knowledge of the cause of suffering, right? And what that was, that's the second one, right? Samudaya. Then there was the third, and how to bring this to an end, right? That's where you got the whole chain of dependent origination, right? then, of course, there's the path that leads to that, right? The Arya Saka. Four noble truths, four forms of knowledge. And this fourth noble truth, the Eightfold Path, right? It starts first with what? Right view. That's actually the whole path. That's it. Right view. You can't have right relationship with nobody. Get that clear? You're trying to enter into right relationship with people, and you don't have no right view. Is that going to happen? No. Wait now. You know, think about it, because you all are really seriously trying to pull that one off. You put a lot of energy into that, aren't you? Yeah. The Buddha and all Buddhas say the same thing. Gotta have right view. There is no alternative to right view. You have to get that. Just right view. This, and the Buddhist term that the Buddha used, because Buddha was from India, not from China, obviously. So, you see, and that is Drishti. The Buddha says you must have the right Drishti. You must comprehend the ultimate nature of reality. And he had just given them to you, right? He had 1, 2, 3, right? You got to have that. Know this, know that. You don't understand the other one, you can't do this. You can't even understand this thing, let alone do it. And he said, but if you have the right view, then you're going to have right thoughts, right resolve. Is that about right? You all know the rest, right? This is called the Panacilla. Pana means knowledge, right? Then we can come down to this one here. Now we can get some right speech, right? Right speech in your relationships without right view. Who you kidding? Huh? Are you? Are you going to have any right actions? Nope. How are you going to have any right actions? And right livelihood, you think you'll engage in a right livelihood? No, you'll do anything to make some money. No matter if it hurts you or anybody else. And you all know the rest, you see. So this establishing and then maintaining your mind in a state of suffering, in a state of Drishti, maintaining it's essential. And you get to choose. Yes,
See, that's what I was going to ask following to the back. First, you were saying about how you can dissolve it by using cinnamon, butter, and behind.
Throw it out. Yeah.
Throwing it out, but don't in the process, don't you? You're supposed to know what Drishti that we're lacking, so we can throw it out.
Oh yeah. You on your way to trying to get that and cultivate that state of mind, but you don't have to do any swimming, but
right.
That's our goal.
Okay.
That's the goal of the path. I know. Now that should cheer you up. That should cheer all you rascal up. You know, it's not like I'm other than all this. No, we're trying to get past that. But you must at least be able to operate. At least you should be able to enjoy the happiness of concentration. I mean, otherwise you're gonna keep chasing down this cheap, sensual, and potentially base happiness. You're gonna stay out here. They're saying that's counterproductive, right? But the ideal, Aladas, is that, yes, we want to go beyond that, all the way to the point where you are able to become established, and that non-suffering state of mind. But until then, you need a means, right? And that's what Yosemite budgeting and Dion is. Hence the practice of it moment to moment. And that's my whole point. You all said too, you know what I mean? These all were weak tools, weak-ass tools. Really. Weak-ass tools. Because they didn't do any work. They didn't have no effect. I mean, you were still suffering, you all been suffering your ass off these last few years.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Sure. So you're gonna have to kick it up. So you're gonna have to get serious about it. So you're not serious yet. You're not serious about this practice. You gotta get serious about this practice because you don't have no wisdom mind yet. You gotta get serious about this practice. You really do. And I'm just trying to help give you some kind of rational basis for your serious practice. If I cannot give you the emotional basis for it, you see. But you gotta really start really getting down to business. And establishing and maintaining your mind in a state of no suffering your primary goal. That's what you're about. That's what you're doing, trying to do. Do this make sense to you all?
Yes, sir, totally.
Do you feel what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. Good.
I mean, can you feel can you see how that's in your own best interest?
Yes, sir.
How it's not about how you show up with other people, your image with other people, your whole motive in your interaction with other people and with events and circumstances and situations during the day, your whole motive is shifted.
It's like expanding your consciousness.
You feel a shift.
Right. It's no longer got anything to do with anybody else.
No. You're not trying to teach nobody a lesson.
Right.
You follow me?
Right.
Tell nobody anything.
You're not trying to tell them anything. You're not trying to dominate nobody.
Right.
You're not trying to show up as being this way or that way. You're just trying to maintain your mind in a state of no suffering because you don't want to suffer no more. You want to maintain your mind in a state of no more suffering. That's what the goal is. You see? And you can feel that shift in yourself. That shift manifests in the way you interact with other people. When a disputation with one of your family members or coworker arises, so you're not into this trying to be right shit no more. You follow what I'm saying? You're trying to, let me say, I'm gonna go through this situation here in such a way that I maintain my state of no more suffering. Because I done been that way. And I know which way that leads to. And that leads to more suffering. And I'm going to be very disturbed at the end of this fight, if I fight. You see? My peace of mind will be sacrificed. And Maharaji said you should not sacrifice your peace of mind for nobody and for no thing or under no circumstances in this world. So you got to see, it's all of this worth the sacrifice of your peace of mind. About that business. You see that's where you have to get genuine now. You see my point, beloveds? You know, I mean, no fooling now. You know what I mean? Well, we're not trying to be scholars and academic and all of this here. You know, we're not into any of that right now. Well, this is really about how to maintain my mind in a state of no suffering. Moment to moment. Haven't had enough of that. Or you can continue what you're doing.
What kind of
mean, you really can. Meetings, you can talk up with each other on the phone. You can share your little spiritual information with one another, and all the time remain suffering. You can congratulate one another on having been given the grace of initiation, cheerleaders, you know what I mean? That kind of environment. Or you can want real happiness. I mean, this is what you somewhere with yourself about. But if you're feeling what I'm saying here, feeling what I haven't said, feeling both, then something in you will be moved some way today. Something will click. It'll go off today. That's really what you came to the house for, is to find out about that state of mind of which suffering and how to enter into it. That's what you walk through the Lord looking for, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Huh? You didn't come in here looking for buddies, did you? Right?
Right.
You came in here looking for that, didn't you? Well, that's still possible. It was possible then, it's possible now. The question is, are you still looking for this? Or were you even looking for it when you came? Otherwise, you see, beloved, we just become a group of people that get along swell with. What is that?
Yeah, right.
You know, we kind of slap each other on the back Sunday morning kind of. You follow me? Cheerleading, congratulating each other for our mediocrity. I listen to you all school tapes, and you are constantly congratulating each other for your mediocrity. Oh, I did one month of meditation. One day of meditation. Oh, you did good. That's good. You. It is simply the sign and demonstration of your non-seriousness. So you all must start showing me the signs and the demonstration of your silence in your practice. You must show one another the signs and the demonstration of your silence in your practice. You see? Give each other that gift. Don't put that kind of a burden on the other person to be the source of your happiness. Now, anything else to say about it, beloved? So let your next 40 days of Touchstone Sadhana practice be real. And then we will sit again. And maybe one day we're going to need the be able to firmly establish our minds and maintain them in a state of no suffering. But when I heard of such a possibility from Maharaj, that geeked me up. I'm still geeked up about it, 30-some years past. That's exciting shit to me. That's real possibility for my life. That grabbed me. That here's the way by which you can establish your mind and maintain it in a state of no suffering. Man, that blew my mind.
Be free.
Real freedom. Not involved with your community for the sake of promoting my image of myself as being some kind of spiritual person. That was the farthest thing from my mind. I wouldn't have wore a bald head and dressed hippie if that was my goal. Would I rather do that? Did I look like some spiritually evolved person? You all was there, right? They made me do these talks, but what else could I do? But I wouldn't change the truth of who and what I am, right? Is that right, Brother Roger? Bald head, earring, dark shades, like a drug addict. Talking about Kabir. Because that blew my mind. That possibility. Language was bad. You understand? Because that wasn't my goal. My goal is not to create a spiritual image and then have that spiritual image maintained by a group of other people around me. That's bullshit. I'm not the least bit interested in that. You all seem to be fascinated by it. Look at me, how spiritual I am game. You all playing a game here, basically. You playing like you want to be free. You playing a game. Somehow or another, you have become pathologically attached to your suffering. It's a strange phenomenon. It's hard for me to really appreciate that. But surely, this must have some appeal to somebody.
To be sure.
Huh?
To be absolutely sure.
To you, beloved? It works for you? You too? You had a comment, beloved?
Yes, I was thinking, I think that comes from like being black with the slave thing and coming on up through all this, that we've learned to try to put up with this suffering, but we've been blessed from this, from the matrix of suffering.
If you want to be unplugged. See, that's the question. Do you want to really get unplugged? Do you really want to be unplugged? Because see, there's a lot of it's become very chic and very popular today to talk about, quote unquote, being spiritual. It's very popular. Go out to California, there's literally millions of brothers and sisters out there, all into that because it's a fad to be spiritual today. It's a fad to be into some kind of meditation or some kind of diet. You know what I mean? It's a fad. It's chic. One is considered to be sophisticated. Or one is practicing some form of meditation, It's like FUBU. It's stylish. So it is that kind of thing, too, you see, on the side. That is